Welcome to A Women's Brew, where women talk about beer. In today's episode, we're looking back at some of the lesser-known women in beer history. I'm Joanne, and this is Tori.
Hello.
And we're two beer-loving women on a mission to get more people drinking and talking about great beer. Come join us! Right, we're going to preface this by saying we're cranky today.
I'm cranky,
We're
I'm
annoyed.
tired.
We're annoyed, we're cranky. We're going to have a nice episode where we talk about the lesser-known women in beer history while we're talking about women, because of all the nonsense that's going on in the world right now. Just in case you weren't sure, A Women's Brew, I'm saying this for myself, and I'm saying it for Tori, because I know she's happy with me saying it.
I already said it.
But you already said it.
I already said it on a live stream.
We're saying it again. We stand with trans women. Trans women are women. Like, please go away if you don't believe this. Like, you're in the wrong place if you're not on board with people getting to live their lives the way they want to. Like, I'm putting a stake in the sand for this one. Like, people, let's just let people live their lives.
We spent like a solid probably 20 minutes before we even started recording ranting
about the state of the world right now.
Just the world.
Yes.
Why I slept 4 hours. Or just everything. Just everything. Everywhere.
Yeah. But we're going to talk to you about some wonderful women in beer history.
Well, yeah. I think it's an interesting one. I feel like we set the mood like really angry.
We did.
But like...
We're just going to be hopped up on feminism. And our feminism is intersectional.
But I also feel like you then tried to pull it out and be like, we're going to talk about some lovely stories. But what I will say
They're probably not as lovely as we'd like them to be.
No, not what I was going to say. What I was going to say was the whole sort of reason. So to give some background, we are drinking at the moment. We've already cracked it open. We've already been drinking because we were talking for 30 minutes about Maranga. We are drinking a Mauldons Silver Adder Pale Ale. Yeah. It is really lovely. I'll talk more about it in a minute. It's really quite lovely. It's giving me pub like it smells vibes. It smells like the pub. It tastes like the pub in a really good way, like that comfy cozy space. And when we were ranting, it was really nice because it just felt like we were sat in a pub together, just being angry and cranky and tired. Not hungry because I had dinner, so that's okay.
Yeah, we both had dinner.
Hanger. It wasn't hanger. Just
it's real true anger.
It's real true anger fueled from lack of sleep and everything else, and just the world. But
awful people.
So to give some background, when we had been reading post-reading A Woman's Places in the Brewhouse, and we read Filthy Queens, we had Dr. Christina on, like, kind of throughout reading those things and reading about these really interesting women across all these different books that we were reading and talking to Dr. Christina and all that, we sort of we talked kind of on and off, not necessarily on the podcast, but how cool it would be to sort of do a spotlight every so often on women in beer, and maybe focusing on the people that maybe don't get as much airtime, whether throughout history, past, present, future. I don't know. Who knows anymore with the state of things? Maybe we'll get time travel. I don't know. But we thought that could be really interesting, and I sort of thought it would be. I love a good, weird, and interesting fact. So in my brain, I was like, I would love to find some of the most zaniest, weird, interesting stories from some of these people, because I think it was after we read Filthy Queens. Mm-hmm. And there was a story about St. Bridget, and I feel like you hear about St. Bridget when you hear about beer, but the story that was in Filthy Queens is very much a side of her that I didn't know. And we talked about it on that episode, and I don't really want to like kind of spoil it by saying it again. I want you to go and read it yourself, because that book, I've recommended that book to people. Yeah, and that was the side that I was like, oh my God, that is excellent. And so I kind of wanted to find like the weird, interesting, wonderful, funny, iconic, unique stories of these people. So that's kind of like where that kind of came from. And then we sort of like, eventually we'll do that. And then for International Women's Day, people from Mauldons reached out and said, well, we're releasing a beer to honour Anna Maria, who's their founder, to celebrate International Women's Day. They were doing, I believe it was a bitter, and they, again, we'll talk about that in a minute, and they were like, you know, this is only going to be on tap, it's not going to be bottled, but we'd like to, you know, if you'd like us to send you some beers to try. And I was like, actually, this is quite perfect, because, you know, they've sent us some beers to try, which was really lovely. Thank you so much if you are listening to this. They've not said, like, they were just like, it wasn't, oh, we're going to send you this so that you can feature it on an episode. It was like, yeah, we'll just celebrate International Women's Day, we'll send you something, you can check it out, see what you think. And that's when I sort of like connected dots. I was like, well, we've been talking about doing this, and then we've got, you know, a story about somebody that I hadn't really heard of before. So I thought, well, that would be cool. So we thought we'd got some Mauldons to drink through, and we'll talk about some of these lesser known women to us, or, you know, other people might go, I know exactly who Anna Maria is. I did not. But to go back to why I was like, I love that you tried to lift us out of this anger. So as I started going through some of it, so I was doing like basic Google searches. I used ChatGPT at one point, because it's interesting when you do Google searches for lesser known women in beer, and how you try to find things there, how much you don't find. So I was using, at one point I started using ChatGPT to just facilitate trying to narrow down where to go and look. What I found was the most frustrating is, like, I could use the exact same prompt and replace women with men, or replace men with women, and all of a sudden that changed. Like, it was just a completely different prompt. So, like, for example, I put in, what are some weird or interesting stories about women in beer history, and it was spitting out stuff that was like, and I was really clear, like I said, like weird, fun, interesting, unique. Like, I was saying stuff like that in the prompt, and it was just, every time I'd kind of change that word and tweak it a little bit, it would just give me the same stuff, like women were the original brewers, or like stuff that was that if you've listened to things from Dr. Christina or read books, so they're like, yeah, this myth of, oh, witches actually came from Brewster.
No, they didn't.
And they didn't, but it's like that.
But thanks for your input.
But it kept bringing up stuff like that, and it wasn't giving me like individual women. It was like, other than like, it was like Ninkasi, and I was like, yeah, okay, we've talked about cool. Ninkasi. We're like, cool. It wasn't anything of what I was actually looking for. But the second that I changed that word to men, it gave me lists of all these individual people and these like wild stories, whether or not they were true or you know, urban legends about like real people. Like, because I said they didn't have to be stories that were true stories per se, but just something that was perceived as being true about a real person. They had to be a real person is what I was looking for. And it was like, effortlessly, without needing to tweak it, the men's one just came up with, here's all these things. The women's one, it was like, honestly, pulling teeth. And that's when I was sort of like, I don't know how we're going to do this episode. This is really hard. Shout out to Mauldons, like their website, they had a lot of like really good history about the start of their brewery and all of that. Obviously, it doesn't give me all the details that I was looking for, but it gave me like a really good baseline there. But like for some of these other people that I didn't have any background to go on, I was just like, cool. So I compiled a list. So I've got some other people we can explore in the future potentially. But it was just shocking. Like, that was the first hurdle, was finding the people, like finding actual people and not just grouping bunches of women into like herds of like, here's the original brewers and here's the people in here's the Sumerian women and it was like,
cool story, bro.
This isn't what I'm looking for. So I had to really kind of chop and change to get what I wanted. And then like some of the stuff that it came up with was like, of these stories, again, not about people. It was just like, there's a beer made with vaginal yeast. And I was like, cool, again. Like I was like, this is not, again. And I was like, this is not the type of stuff I was looking at. Or it was talking about sort of Brianne Allen's tweet that sort of sparked the whole Brave Noise movement. And I was just like, these results just don't sit right with me comparative to like what you get when you just put in men as opposed, like it was just as vague, but I got so much more specific stuff
and you
from
feel like
that search.
In 2025, we'd be at a point where we could get a little bit more information about this sort of stuff. But then again, when you think about it, when we're at a point where, women scientist biographies are being removed from places, like, this is how we don't have this information, because it hasn't been deemed as important. And, it's really sad that people are having to really do a lot of work. Like, historians are there for a reason. They do a really great job, but there's, people have to really, like, go the extra mile and really try and find things, because it's not easy to find this stuff, because it's just been either eradicated or ignored, and that's not cool.
100%. Like, I feel like other than the books that, like, I struggle to think really of many other books other than the ones that we've already talked about before and promoted before and read and discussed on the podcast, or talked about the fact that we wanted to read them. And it's only by like a handful of people that are writing these, and maybe there are more and I'm just obviously not aware of them, but the focus on women in beer. But it was just like, it was so shocking. I think like when you start looking into it, it's like, I can't imagine obviously we had a time frame in which I had to do this. So it was very like surface level. Like I can't even imagine the kind of work that Dr. Christina does when she's got to go. I get why like writing those books takes so long. Like
that's her baby.
And I get why it takes so long to do, because it's like going through archives and like I found some things that, like, some of the ones that it was like, oh yeah, here's this person's done this, and then when I actually start digging into it, I'm like, oh, okay, cool, great, and I start digging into it, and it's like, oh, let me validate that. No, that's wrong. No, that's wrong. Okay, does this person actually have a connection with beer? No. Oh, okay, so that was just an inaccurate, one source inaccurately said it. Therefore, I spent so much time validating it, and I had to go at one point, oh, this person I wanted to talk about, I got to chuck that in the bin now. As interesting as it was, and some of the interesting stuff I learned about this person, I just wasted hours researching someone that I've just got to chuck in the bin, because actually it's not useful to what we're talking about. So I've just got even more, I had so much respect for her already, I've just got even more respect for her now, because I'm like, I just did very high level Googles in an effort I just wanted to get names out there more than anything else, just to talk through it.
That's why I'm so excited about, like, when she was talking about how she'd found, like, where she'd gone into, like, where Dr. Christina had gone into the records and found, like, this person had paid this tax. So we can extrapolate from that they must have been brewing, because that was a thing that you did if you were a brewer. And so there were women that were brewing because of this. And, like, having to find that tiny little piece of evidence buried in something that you're not necessarily thinking is a source that you can, that it's not a source that would come to mind right away. Like, that's why I found that so interesting, because you have to dig so deep to find this stuff.
100%. And I think this is a good opportunity to say, if you haven't seen something I posted a bit ago, or basically there is a petition that was created by Christopher, who's Small But Fierce Brewing. They created the Recognised Contributions of Women in Beer History, which was basically a petition to say we wanted, as a community, we want to make sure women aren't forgotten. And obviously you probably know a lot more about this than I do, but the curriculum for Cicerones are just, apparently of all the books that are in there, there's just like not a lot that have that real female focus on it. So this petition is basically to get a women's places in the Brewhouse added in an attempt to not forget about women within that beer scene. And I'd shared that when it came out, and then a bunch of people came back and said, well, actually I can't sign it because it needs a US postcode, and I used my mum's, and I was going to tell you to use my mum's, because you don't actually have to verify it. It's just like put in the postcode. I was thinking it might have me verify it, and then it was like, no, just put in the postcode, you're good, fam. And I was like, okay, cool. So I was going to say, if you asked me, just
live with your mum.
So you could use my mum's, you know it, it's fine. But then enough people messaged me about it, and I got permission to make a change.org petition. So I didn't change any, like literally all I did was copy paste and say, this is based on this. If you're in the UK, Europe, anywhere that somewhere that's more focused over on this side of the pond, so that you can use your actual postcode. To be honest, I've now added it to my link tree, but I hadn't added it to the link tree before.
We'll put it in the show notes as well.
Put it in the show notes. If you're in the US, sign the US one. If you're not in the US, you can sign the other one. I think it's probably good to keep, if you're in the US, keep to the original one as much as possible. The only reason the second one is there is just to help. But I've opened it now just to kind of refresh on which was on which. But there's only... So this was created... few weeks back, 3 weeks ago, and there's 91 signatures on there out of I think the target's 100. 91 signatures on there. On the one I created, there's 10, which is fine, because I shared it on my personal Facebook. I didn't really share it in groups. I didn't do a lot of hardcore sharing of it. But yeah, it is in my link tree now. Like Joe said, we'll share it in the show notes. But like, I feel like that is just shocking. That it's like in total of 2 different petitions on a global scale, there is 101 people just saying yes. Like this should be added. This book should be in a curriculum so that people can learn about women in beer.
Are we cranky tonight?
I do feel cranky, but then also like. I know this is like, we're trying to be uplifting with it, but like the whole reason why I thought this episode is actually really important is because of the fact that it is such a challenge to find some of these stories. And I was like, that actually for me makes it even more important to do the episode, really. I just feel bad. Apologies to Mauldons, because we're drinking your beer.
The beer's great.
When I originally said to them, like, actually, that would be really cool. This is the idea we were thinking of doing with it. I did say, like, we just wanted to tell some really weird, like, interesting stories about lesser known people within beer, and they were like, yeah, no, that's awesome, yeah, sounds good. But that was before I did the research and realized how difficult it was. So apologies, although you got a glass, I didn't get a glass, so I feel like my anger levels make up for the fact that it's fine, I just didn't get a glass. I'm looking a gift horse in the mouth and I can't believe I didn't get a glass. I'm just kidding, because I'm not. I've got so many glasses, but still. But yeah, no. I think I feel bad because I'm like, this was meant to be positive and uplifting and fun, and it's like I'm really struggling to find the fun.
Let's be positive from here on out. What stories did you find for us?
All right. Well, so if we start, let's cover Anna Maria first, because that feels like that's fair. Let's give them the intro. They did provide us this lovely beer. So just to talk about the beer that had come out. So that was just a traditional bitter. So it was a 4.2%. The blurb that's listed with it is, to celebrate International Women's Day on 8th of March, Mauldons will be launching a special edition bitter, Anna Maria, in tribute to its trailblazing founder. Managing director Charlie Buckle shares, Anna Maria was ahead of her time, and we wanted to honour her contributions with a beer that reflects the traditional brewing techniques she would have used. This International Women's Day, we raise a glass to her legacy. So, yeah, cheers. Cheers, Anna Maria.
Cheers, Anna Maria.
That is not the beer that we're drinking right now. As we said, we're drinking
Silver Adder.
Silver Adder, which is a 4.2% pale ale. So I've got some tasting notes, from when they sent us across it. Here's what I'm going to send you. Some notes from that, and some notes that I got directly from the Mauldons website. We can share a bunch of links as well, because there's a whole slew of links that I've got that
make sure you check the show notes.
Check the show notes. So yeah, the tasting notes for this one. So Silver Adder is SIBA's Independent Beer Award of 2022, the gold winner of that. So that it was leading with that. I was like, that's worth noting down. So well done. And it is really, really drinkable. What can I say? It says it's a super pale ale. Powerful hops give a lovely citrus burst, followed by crisp, clean finish. Described as a smooth golden session ale with a delicate balance of citrus and floral notes, ideal for welcoming spring. And it does kind of feel that way. As I said, 4.2%, colour golden, hops Cascade and Willamette, and the malt is extra pale. It says extra pale planet and super pale. I've not heard that. That sounds fun.
Yeah. That's your super spreadsheet.
Yeah, we'll do. Absolutely will do. So yeah, that's the beer that we're having at the moment. What vibes are you getting? Are you enjoying it?
I really like it. I think like it's, you know, it's a pub beer. It's like a summer pub beer, sitting in a sunny beer garden, or at a, you know, like a proper traditional beer festival. I could see myself drinking this.
I feel like I get it when they say like a spring beer, because obviously with like the Easter bank holidays coming up, we've got a super long weekend. Like I could see being like, yeah, just going out and about, sitting at a pub, having some of this. When it's that, like, not for me, I think this is less summer beer and definitely more spring beer for me, because I can see drinking this when it's not 100% super, super hot. There's just like that, it's that like warmth where you could like sit in a jumper, but then you go, oh, but this is refreshing and nice. There's like that touch of Christmas in the air still, just a little crisp bite. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
You're so temperature controlled.
Not always temperature controlled, but I feel like if it were really, really hot, I think I'd want something slightly different than this. Like this feels perfect for the season that we're in right now, except all this rain. Sorry, we're not being negative anymore.
Stop with the negativity. We're going to forget about the rain.
Maybe that's actually why we're partially cranky, tired, and negative as well. It's because it went from being like, wear your shorts in your short sleeves, to it's cold and rainy, don't leave the house. And it's going to be a bank holiday, and guess what? It's going to rain some more. But okay, we're positive now. So do you want me to tell you what I found out about Anna Maria?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, cool. So as I mentioned already, and it was mentioned when it was told to us, she's the founder and the brewer of Mauldons. So there was a lot of information across various pages on the Mauldons website, as I said, that we can share. I couldn't really see a lot about anything like early life. There wasn't any date of birth. Doesn't really say when she died. Like I can't really see any real records that dive in to anything there. All that I can tell you is that she was active brewing until probably about 1875. But so Mauldons is based in Sudbury in Suffolk, which hilariously
we're going there.
We're going there in July for Little Earth Fest spoiler. And I think the road that it's on is actually close-ish to where my Airbnb is.
Oh.
I think, because I looked at the sign on my Airbnb and I went, that sounds familiar for some reason. And then when I started reading the website, I was like, I think that's where my Airbnb is. So
brilliant.
That'll be interesting and fun if it is. So as I said, based in Sudbury. So it's origins are tracing back to 1795. So that's quite a long time ago. And that's when Anna Maria was the lease and licensee. Well, I just wrote the license holder because it just sounds like that makes more sense. But back in the day, it was like the leasee and the licensee, and that sounded way too confusing. But she was that for the Bull Hotel. And she recognised that there was real potential and opportunity of using local high-quality ingredients. The hotel had a brew house that was attached to it. And from what I understand from reading various news articles, one of them we could probably link as well, it's thegreatbritishlife.co.uk. They were kind of saying like that's commonplace at that time, was to have that attached. And that is what made them self-sufficient in terms of beer. So they were just, everything they were consuming is what they were brewing. She then became known for brewing beers of, as they quote, consistent quality and distinct flavour. So they attribute that. From what I could see, that's attributed to the use of the local products and how she sort of utilised them. And yeah, so I was going to say, let me click into, so on the timeline, just like there's the what we'll share is this timeline page. So it's basically saying like 1795, they first became involved in brewing. The business consisted of a brewery, some 30 tied public houses, a wine and spirit business, and a small farm.
Wow.
Which I feel like they were powerhouse at that time.
Yeah.
Then 1800 to 1960, it said, as the business prospered, additional pubs and hotels were purchased. In the early 1800s, the brewery moved to a larger premise in Ballingdon Street in Sudbury. I'm not sure if it was at this point or not. I know that at one point through various research, I'm not sure if it was like 1800 to 1960 or later. I think there was like a bunch of the chain ones that opened up, they were Green Kings, but I think from what I gather since then, those had been shut down as Green Kings. So that was interesting, because I was like, it sort of went from like this family run business to then kind of going,
yeah, but there was that
Green Kings are bought in, but then it changed hands.
That period of time where kind of your Green Kings, your Marston's, your Shepherd Neame kind of bought out quite a lot of the Whitbread, I think, as well. Like, so there was I think it's about 6 lots of breweries, like 6 big breweries, like bought out all of the kind of pubs and things and had a bit of a monopoly on everything. So that's probably what happened there.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I think it was always like the brewery itself was always like the family owned aspect, but then like it was the restaurants that were like sort of chained off of it, which that was interesting. It was quite hard to because I was piecing this together from various different articles and sources, so it was interesting. And then it says between 1980 and 2000, 1981, Peter Mauldon, a descendant of Anna Maria, decided to re-establish the family tradition and start a brewery in Sudbury once again. The son had been too young to be involved in the original family business. So Peter, who's that descendant, was too young to be involved in the family business and had previously pursued a career with Watney's Brewery, where he progressed to head brewer at the company's large Mortlake Brewery. Then in 1982, premises on the Chiltern Industrial Estate were acquired and the brewery was constructed, and December of that year, the first barrels of beer were being brewed again in Sudbury. So I think it was, so they've got a photo up here of their current head brewer, Steve Birch. They've got a picture of him in 1980, and he's still the head brewer today, is what I understand. Then from 2000 to 2019, there was a decision made by Peter and Jane Mauldon that they wanted to retire, so they sold it to Steve and Alison Sims. So that was purchased 1st of March 2000. Then 2019 to present, so in September of 2019, Charlie Buckle, who lives on his family farm 10 miles from Sudbury, then purchased the brewery. And then, he just goes with the passion for the beer, really. And it's back in the hands. It says it's back in the hands. Well, not that it wasn't, but it's in the hands of a family who care, and they're quite proud of what they do. And it's like today that they've doubled in size and got large purpose-built cold store and bottle shop. From what I could see on other parts of the page as well, they're quite big into sustainability, which I think was really, really good. Interestingly, when I was doing digging, I found another website called brewinghistory.com, and their label that they have for this, it's like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like a cream coloured, like a beigey cream coloured background with red writing, I think is the one for the Anna Maria, not for Silver Adder, with this maroon red writing on it. And when I went on this page, there is I'll send you the link so you can see it, but there's like a label that's called Coronation Ale that looks like it almost has like a very similar sort of writing on it. Yeah, it was interesting, because I like sort of opened it up and I went, oh, that looks quite similar. And I'm guessing that was intentional.
Yeah.
But it was all basically saying like it started off as Anna Maria. She then brought her sons on board. It changed name, and then she passed it on to her family. And ever since, it's kind of changed hands from family to family. So I feel like that has got so much history to that. Like, and for that time as well, like that would have had to have been like really pioneering for a woman to have sort of gone, I'm going to establish this business and I'm going to establish a brewery with that bit, like not just brewing to sustain yourself, but to form like an actual standalone brewery. I think they've got 3 pubs still that they've got under their control in Sudbury. So maybe I'll pay them a visit when we're there in July, because that'll be cool. But yeah, thoughts? Did you learn anything new there? Because I didn't know anything about her, so I learned.
No, I'd not heard of Anna Maria. I think I've heard of Watney's Brewery, but I'd not heard of her before. So it's really interesting.
Have you ever had Mauldon's beer before?
I don't think I've had any Mauldon's beer before.
I feel like I have at a pub somewhere, but then when I looked, I was like, maybe I haven't. But
if I had tried it, it would have been at like the Kent Beer Festival.
I might have tried it and not realised, because it sounded really familiar, but then I was like, I think it was the Silver Adder and the Black Adder. Like, I feel like I've seen the Black Adder before, but then I'm like, maybe I've just made that up in my brain because of the TV show.
Might just be the TV show.
Yeah, which I've never actually watched. So
you've never watched Blackadder?
No.
Oh my god. Okay, we need to. No,
it's
I don't
Mr.
think
Bean,
I've ever
isn't
it? Yes, it's Mr. Bean.
That's Rowan Atkinson. Rowan Atkinson is always just going to be Mr. Bean to me. He's never not going to be the guy that goes, Teddy. I watched Mr. Bean as a kid. Does that count?
No, because it's not the same.
It's same, right?
It's not same at all. Yeah, I feel like you need to like rectify that and watch some Blackadder.
Oh, I know Rick's definitely watched it. I think maybe I've watched like part of one episode at one point in time when it was on live TV, maybe. But yeah, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. What I thought was most interesting from all of this as well was that like I was really trying to think of if I knew of any other more trad style brewery with that much history at that scale, like in this market space. I couldn't think of anyone else that I knew that was actively promoting and talking about International Women's Day in general, let alone making a beer for it. So I thought that was quite interesting in itself. Hopefully they don't email me like, you've absolutely butchered her story, but I'm trying to piece it together from so many different sides, and I'm like, how do I give this in the most clear, consistent way? But yeah, it was nice that somebody was actually in that market going, let's put an International Women's Day out. The most I could think of was like, I guess somebody could argue Thornbridge, but I was like, I don't feel like that's the same.
No, I don't think that's the same.
I don't think it's like, I wouldn't say that's the same, but I guess in the sense of like sometimes they make the types of beers they're making in terms of style, but I was like, no, I don't think that's the same.
No, I think we can still say that Thornbridge is craft.
That's what
traditional.
Yeah, and that's it. As I was like,
I mean, I know that we've got no real parameters and it's all very subjective, but
that's it, isn't it? Because it's, I guess that then brings it down, which is not what this episode's about at all. But it does bring it down to then you go, well, can't a craft brewery make trad style beers? And it's like, well, yeah, they can. And so I guess somebody could go, yeah, but like Thornbridge does stuff like that, and it's like, well, yeah, but I don't see them in the same market space, if that makes sense. So, but that's the closest that I could even come, and it's not close. What about you? Can you think of any?
No, I don't think so. Brewery that shall be unnamed. At one point a few years back, I was just like, ever thought about doing an International Women's Day event?
I know.
And I got told there wasn't enough space in the Brewhouse.
Yeah, I do remember that. You telling me about that. I know. I was like, oh, who? And then I was like, oh yeah, no, I know now. I mean, and to be fair, like, you can do tours of the brewery. They're bespoke tours, so I think you can go as a group and you pay like as a group. But I don't know if you need minimum numbers. I don't know how that works. I don't know if the way that their space is, Mauldons could ever open up in that capacity. Like, I don't know if they could ever do an event like that. But I thought it was a big step to even like recognize that, recognize your 100-year-old, especially because it's not still within the same family. The fact that it's like, oh, we're going to make a beer that would be fairly true to what Anna Maria would be making, even though it's not your direct descendant anymore. It's just gone through so many different families now. But like the fact they still did that, I was like, well, I think that's cool. you know, they had nothing to lose by not doing it. Nobody would have ever called them out for not doing it. So yeah, so that's, I encourage people to look through the links that we share, learn more about Anna Maria, learn more about Mauldons, go try to find the beer, because that was the one thing I did ask if there was like where we thought we might be able to try it, and it was, I guess, really hard for them to get a list because they were like, it's only on at like certain pubs. But I think they said, they were like, I think the ones that are their pubs in Sudbury, and they're like, but that's quite far for you. And I was like, yes, that's very far.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's still going to be on in July.
No,
but
it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. I'm hoping it's not. I'm hoping that it's all sold out well before. But yeah, so that's 1 of 3 done.
Nice.
Should we move on to the next beer then?
Let's. All right, beer number 2 is the one that you keep talking about. White Adder.
Yeah, White Adder. This one's actually White Adder.
Yeah. Original IPA.
Yeah, so White Adder is a strong original style IPA using traditional English golden hops and Pale Planet malted barley. Again with that Pale Planet malted barley. The description that was given was a refreshing pale ale with a delicate hop character and smooth malt backbone. It's 5.3%, amber in colour, golden hops, it says, and Pale Planet malt.
This is definitely like a pub.
This smells
beer.
Yeah, it smells like a pub beer.
Like when I drink this one and then I think about the Silver Adder, I'm like, yeah, Silver Adder is spring. This is like,
this is just
pub.
year-round pub. Yeah, I feel like cold dock pub. And like, I don't, that sounds really negative. I know we're being positive. I don't mean that in a negative way. There's almost like
cozy
like,
pub.
There's almost like a burnt toffee aroma in it.
It's that more amber colour.
Yep.
So remember, it's going to be. It says original IPA. It's an English IPA, not a stuffed full of hops American IPA.
An original English IPA.
Yeah, original English. It's quite fruity smelling. Fruity and toffee. Dried fruits.
Dried fruits. Yeah, I was going to say it's dried fruits. I don't mind it. I like dried fruits when it's not texturally. Yeah, when it's not actual fruit. I still maintain there's nothing worse than when you pick up a cookie and you're like, chocolate chip, yes, and then you're like, oh, it's dried fruit.
I sometimes really like
disappointing.
A sultana biscuit. Sometimes I really like it.
But you go into it knowing that's what it is. I don't even touch the stuff. If I think it's like, yeah, chocolate chips, gooey chocolate chip cookie, and then you're like, oh, it's dried fruit in there as well. No. Or you just think it's a plain oatmeal cookie, and then there's like raisins hidden, and you're like, why weren't you on the surface level so I could see you?
Because they burn.
Oh no, but I love an oatmeal cookie. Hate an oatmeal raisin. Yeah, so there's the bitterness in this as well is very like, it's quite pronounced, but very well, but like I feel like it's rounded off quite nicely. It's not harsh.
Yeah.
It does feel misplaced having it in my office space, because again, the Silver Adder, well, it felt like a pub beer. It felt like I've brought the pub to my house.
Oh yeah.
The White Adder feels like I had a pint at the pub. I was like, shit, I've got to go. I've got to record tonight. And then I took it with me and then decided to finish drinking it at home. And it feels like it's got no business being consumed within my office, is how it feels. Yeah, no, I feel like there's just no business me drinking this in here, because it feels like I've nicked it from the pub. Like it was like I had a lovely glass and then I went, shit, got to record with Joe.
Go.
Run home. But it's nice. Like, it is nice. It's just that it just feels like a wrong setting. It feels out of place. Cool. So, person number 2 is Mary Lisle. Now, I've put all these notes someplace completely separate.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of Mary Lisle before?
I don't think I have.
Or I guess if you want to mispronounce it, Lisle, because I looked it up because I was like, I felt like this was a trick, and I looked it up and it says that it's pronounced Lisle, but it could be telling me fibs.
No,
but I did set it on the American pronunciation,
like Carlisle.
Yeah, except like I said, I specifically went give me the American pronunciation.
Oh.
That's a hint for you of like,
okay.
Do you know who this person is?
No.
So she is the first recorded female commercial brewer in US history.
Oh, okay. Cool.
I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah.
I know that you want to know more about her.
I do.
Can't tell you. You know what? So
brilliant.
I can tell you what I don't know about her, and I can tell you what I do know about her. I think there's probably more that I don't know about her than what I do. So do I know from a general... all the searching I did, which was probably like at least 30 minutes to an hour, just finding this piece of information. Do I know when she was born? No. Do I know when she died? Absolutely not. Do I know her life before she brewed, or even really kind of after she started brewing? You can guess hell to the no. I don't know any of that. Literally none of that. What I can tell you is the only real thing that I know about her is that she took over operation of the Edinburgh Brewhouse in colonial America in Philadelphia. And that was after her father died in 1734, which made her America's first recorded brewster. Wow. So, and obviously at that time, in that point of time in colonial America, like that was a very bold thing to do. Yet, no one really wanted to record that anymore.
Of course they didn't.
I think what I kind of read was it was very likely that there were female identifying people doing this before her. Yeah. But this is the first one that was actually recorded on the record. Her dad died. Someone had to pick it up. She picked it up.
Women will have been brewing just like we've had in history here in England, as we've read about in Ireland. Like there will be women that were brewing because it was part of the kitchen skills. And then there would be women who were part of the ownership of breweries and took over from their husbands if they were widowed. Like they just didn't necessarily get recorded anywhere that they were doing it.
I feel like when I was kind of doing some of the research, it wasn't even necessarily about her, but one of like the side topics, because there were some really good articles. Like there's some really good articles. So the majority of the articles that are out there, the main article, and this is probably going to blow some minds here, was Molson Coors did an article that was for Miller Lite because for the 4th of July in 2022, Miller Lite put Mary Lisle on the can, and we'll share the link to this as well, to this article, because actually every other article that I could find referenced this article. It was literally like the article, like no, but it seems like the first people to actually really write any post properly that I could find, if somebody finds more, I would love that, was Molson Coors. And so they did this, they put her face on the can. So they put her face on the can, and they changed the slogan to say, they wrote on the can, "There's no beer without women." And they did that for the 4th of July. So it's basically saying, paying tribute to the women, paying tribute to those women, and one in particular, Mary Lisle, the first documented female brewer or brewster in America. And it basically was just saying they did a limited edition can to replace the Miller Lite with Mary Lisle. And put "There's no beer without women," and it include the etching of her face and information about the history of women in American brewing. Because I think they were saying that basically, obviously, 4th of July being a big drinking holiday, like this is, I don't know why out of 4th of July, like when it's like women's history, like this was a choice they made for the 4th of July weekend. And maybe it's just because that's one of the biggest beer selling weekends for them, maybe. So they were like, which even bolder move in that regard, because they could have just done the token like International Women's Month, chuck that out there, like people will buy it just as their everyday shopping. But they made a statement by being like, we're going to put this here. And even further to that, they were donating as well. So they were donating $5 from every case sold on the holiday weekend. It said via Instacart and Drizzly. So I don't know if it's like you had to have bought it through Instacart, which is a bit of a trick there because most people probably didn't buy it through Instacart. But $5 when purchased through those places to the Pink Boot Society. And I was like, they didn't have to. $5 seems like quite a lot. Yeah. I mean, obviously a case is probably 20. So if you even say a fourth of that, like a fourth of the case, that I thought that was like really, really good. But yeah, as it says as well in their article, that effectively, according to them, it's basically until 1751 when she was pretty much, and I quote, lost to history as beer became a massive industry, more often than not dominated by men. So again, this was another reason as I was going through that I kept being like, I don't know how I'm going to make this episode work, because literally I can't find any details on any of these people. And then I was like, this is the story. For me, this is the story. It's like, you have the first recorded female brewster in the US. And
we've got nothing on her.
Through cross-referencing, somebody had said something like, oh, it's probably that people were doing that because people were coming over from the UK or Britain, and they were doing that there, so they brought that over to the colonial America with them. And so it's, as you said, probably just one of the duties that they did. But the fact that we're like, we've got this recorded person that's taken over this business, and then we have literally no documents about her before that, after that. I'm sure that there's somebody that's more talented at research, that has more time, that is going to be sat there doing it for a lot longer. But every source that I checked out online that I was like easy access, that was free to access, people were just like, nope. They were just going like, as per the Molson Coors article. And I was like, whoa.
Wow.
How does this one make you feel? How does this story make you feel?
All right, Molson Coors.
Yeah, like, we see you. I know that I talked shit about Miller before.
Yeah, I know we talked shit about Miller.
I talked shit about Miller once, then I drank it, and then I went, I drank it for the first time in a really long time with a different mindset, and I was like, it's not bad. I'm not going to say it slaps, but it's not bad.
No,
I'll drink it again.
But, all right, I mean, cool. Thank you very much, Molson Coors.
They also put in their article, so this is slight tangent to that, but they put in their article that they asked legal drinkers if they knew women first brought beer to America, and they said only 3% answered yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's obviously, there's no parameters around.
2022.
And that's why I think what was shocking. It's like, in 2022. Yeah. But obviously there's no, like, they didn't say we asked people between this age group, or they just said we asked in one state or at one supermarket, or, I don't know what the pool of candidates was, but just 3% said yes. And I was like, very cool. Very cool. But I thought that was one really brilliant.
Yeah, that was great.
It's the most uplifting I think you can get for having literally no facts.
Yeah, indeed.
In the interest of not skipping to the third one too quickly, because I'm still enjoying this beer, I will tell you, the one that I started researching, I got sent on a wild goose chase. And so ChatGPT was like giving me this list of people. Yeah, not to honk ChatGPT's goose, but honk honk. So it was telling me that Charlotte Despard, who is, I hadn't heard of her before, but I would guess that if you are more into like British and Anglo and Irish history, you'd probably know. She was a suffragette, so she was an Anglo-Irish suffragette, an Irish nationalist, social activist, novelist, and among other things, a vegetarian, because they were like, she campaigned for vegetarianism as well. Okay. But like quite all these things I was reading about her, I was like, this is so interesting. So like, she was always a bit rebellious. Wikipedia had said like, oh, she was always quote unquote dubious of authority, ran away from home at the age of 10, got on a train to London to become a servant, like that. And I was like, I like her spirit. This is really great. And I was like reading all these things, and I was like, she seems like such a badass. Got arrested 4 times for her activism in the women's movement.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what a badass. And they were like, her father, they were saying her father was in the Royal British Military. Her brother was basically a person that was I think he was like a representative of the UK to Ireland or something, which then put her politically opposite to him. And there was all these really, really interesting things. And they were like, but her dad was also a co-owner of this brewery. And that's what, and she campaigned for these, as part of the suffragette stuff, she did all this stuff to do with beer. And I was like, I don't think that's true. I don't think any of that's true.
Did she though?
And then I validated all of that, and I was like, none of that's true. And I was like, I just learned she had never done any of this. So like her activism and stuff, she got married, she traveled the world with her husband. He was a businessman. He died overseas. She then said she wore black for most of the rest of her days after he passed. They had no kids, like nothing. And her friends told her to get into charity work, so she did. And then like after all of that research, I went, this will be really cool to talk about. Not linked to beer. Had to check out the window. She's like, I am going to tell you about it anyways, because I was like, she's really cool. And I'm sure a lot of people will be like, oh yeah, I learned about her in school, or I know like this and that about her. I hadn't heard about it because it's not something they teach us in the US in school. So like you learn about suffragette stuff, but not like these individuals. And then I also learned that one of the recommendations was for the Babylonian like mythical person Tiamat. And I really appreciated that one in particular. I didn't do any actual research into it, but I just wanted to call it out that I just thought it was cool because in D&D, one of like our big bad was Tiamat. And I was like, I mean, that's cool though.
That's cool.
I mean, I don't know the link to beer there. Haven't properly looked into it, but I was like,
still cool though.
That's cool though. So it's like name drop that one as well. So yeah, brilliant. That's your second historical lady.
I like it.
And bonus and third.
Bonus not beer lady, but badass.
But bonus badass along the way. Like, I was so gutted. And like, I was like, ChatGPT, can you validate this for me?
And it was
can you give me these sources? I was like, can you check these sources? Can you do this? And it was like, it seems I've made an error and this is not it. And I was like, maybe just try looking at this. Like, I was like,
how dare you?
Try looking at this source. Could you tell me more about this? And they were like, also no, none of that's true. All of it's true. And I was like, maybe here. And it's like, big no, girl. Big no. And I was like,
we went down the wrong rabbit hole there.
I was like, I've just spent over an hour of my life really digging for all this information on her background. And it's not nothing. It is definitely something. It's something spectacular, badass, but not the subject that we were looking for. And I was like, oh, balls. Right, third beer.
Third beer.
In the Adder series.
Yes.
It's Rowan.
It's not Rowan. It's Blackadder, which is a stout.
It's Mr. Bean. It's a 5.3% stout. I'm excited to try this one, actually.
Oh, it smells really good.
I will come out and say, like, I don't think I have a lot. Like, I don't, in my brain, have a lot of trad stouts that I've drank before to compare it to.
She roasty.
Oh, yeah. That linger of that roastiness is nice.
There is a bit of licorice in there.
Yeah, that might be because I was like, there's almost something that I can't describe, but when you said licorice, I was like, I think that's probably it. But it goes so like I feel like it's more noticeable the longer it lingers there, and I'm like breathing out, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's the that's the licorice part. And I'm not really a big like licorice person, but when it's in this type of beer, I feel like it lands really well. And like, I know there'll be people that would have this and go, I don't like it because it's too thin in the mouthfeel. But like,
I enjoy it. Syrupy stout, but not all stouts. If you're not new around here, listeners, then you'll know that I'm like, not all stouts need to be syrup.
I appreciate when it's thinner sometimes. So I just think like it's more about the flavour than it is. Yeah. I mean, obviously the mouthfeel's part of that, but like sometimes it's just nice to have a lighter stout when you want something darker.
Just a bit more easy drinking.
Yeah, I mean 5.3%.
Yeah.
Colour, it says colour black, style British stout, hops are Fuggles, malt, pale planet and crystal malt and black malt. This one says was the champion beer of East Anglia 2016, campaign for Real Ale Gold Stout category, and the gold overall champion, beer of East Anglia. Yeah, there must be 2 or 3 different ones, but they had kind of grouped them all together. The notes on it were that it was a dark, bitter stout, roasted nut aromas with fruity balance of hops and dark malt, providing excellent lingering finish. And it's described by them in the email as a rich, full-bodied stout with notes of coffee and dark chocolate. I guess I could see the dark chocolate, like the longer it kind of like sits there, I get that. But it was the fruit that I was kind of going, I'm almost getting like I was almost tasting this little tiny bit of fruit mixed in every so often, but like it wasn't strong enough that every sip I was just going, oh, fruit. Like it wasn't, you wouldn't go fruity. You're not going like, this is a tropical stout. But that's where I was kind of trying to work out, like, is this fruit or is this something else? And when you said licorice, I was like, I could see how what I'm thinking might be fruit might actually be licorice. So yeah. Right. I think you're going to probably like this third person.
Yeah.
I think you'll appreciate her for sure. And I'll probably mispronounce so much stuff that I almost wish you had the notes to read it, because I'm like, shit. But it is Sister Doris Engelhard. Ever heard of Sister Doris Engelhard?
I feel like I might have heard of Sister Doris.
I feel like there's so many different, like, religiously based women in beer that you just can't, like...
I may be wrong. Maybe I've just heard
I hope you have.
Like
I hope you have.
But I feel like I might have heard of her.
I hope you have, because she seems like super cool. So I did find that if for anyone that obviously will post links and everything else, but for anyone else that wants to like play along and try to find these people, try to prove me wrong, try to be like, where are all these like articles? I think the first one you might not struggle with. The second one you'll struggle with. This one you won't struggle with. So there was a lot more articles. I tended to kind of use Wikipedia tended to have a lot of the stuff that was cross-referenced from everywhere else, so I tended to use that as like my main basis of knowledge, because it was just amalgamating everything. But there were so many articles, and I think it's because it's much more modern in the grand scheme of things. Like, she is so much more present day. So she is, find out if this resonates with what you remember, she's believed to be the last nun working in Europe as a brewmaster.
Yes, I think she's in A Woman's Places in the Brewhouse.
Yeah, well, yeah, I can't remember if she was or not, but I was like...
She's definitely in one of the books I've read about women in beer.
I feel like she probably is, but then I think like I was taking in so much information at that. Like when you're reading these books, you're taking in so much information on them, and if I'm not sat there like taking notes religiously, sometimes like just there's so much to absorb. So I thought I'm just going to talk about her anyways, because she's cool. So yeah, she was born in 1959. And she is a sister of the Congregation of the Poor Franciscan Sisters of the Holy Family. That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
And she brews at the Kloster Mallersdorf, which is Mallersdorf Abbey, Kloster Brewery. I don't know if I said. I've probably butchered
that sounded pretty good.
Of that.
That sounded pretty good.
There's no little like accent marks over any of them, so I was like, I think I can phonetically sound this out maybe. Actually managed to find a link to the Abbey and everything, so I was like, oh, okay, let's do that. And I was going through the website trying to figure out where to buy the beer, because I was like, how I want to see these beers, because people kept being like, she only makes 2 type of beers, and then I was like, well, another article said she makes 3. When on Untapped there's 6, so they've got six different type of beers that they brew. There's a Helles, Zeugel, Hella Bock. I don't even want to try to pronounce this. This is hard. Jubileum's beer. Never literally. It said, oh, that's just the name of it. It's a Helles. It says it's a Helles. But all the rest of them were like, named on the style. And I was I can't say that. And then, Doppelbock. Yeah. And another Bock. So some of the names on it, they had like cola pale, and I was like, what? When I looked at the actual location where you can go and drink and everything, I was like, these are all wild. Untapped only has 6, and I was like, great. But yeah, so yeah, she brews there. She was so I've got this really, really lovely NPR piece where they covered her. That one's definitely worth sharing. And I thought the coolest basically the coolest thing that I could get quote-wise from her was on that article. It says, during Lent, fasting is difficult for me, she says. Eating one meal a day is tough, but beer is liquid. It doesn't count as food. When you fast, a strong beer gives me strength. And I was like, yes, girl. Like, I was like, I love this. It's just the Lenten season. Like, this is what I need.
Sister Doris. So
I thought that was cool. She said, brewing's her way of serving God. So she started brewing, from what I could find, she started brewing at an apprenticeship in 1966 before taking her vows to become a nun in 1969. I guess the reason she sort of got into that was her sick mum was being taken care of by the nuns from this abbey. And I think I read somewhere else that she went to school there. I didn't verify that, but it's like she went to school in the school that was run by the abbey. The nuns took care of her sick mother. It showed her like the humanity in them. So she then took a vow herself to become a nun. And then from there, she took over in 1975 as the master brewer from the sister who had been brewing there since the 1930s.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. And as far as I can tell, so
nuns,
the last real articles that talk about her and quote her and have photos with her are all from like 2021.
Mm-hmm.
A few years ago. Haven't really found, the only thing I found since was like somebody wrote an article of visiting there and they mentioned her, but they didn't actually meet her or anything like that. So I think it said something like she was talking about retirement around that time, but then she expressed the desire to find a suitable successor before she did that, to take over the tradition. So as far as I can tell, everything says she is still brewing. And I hope she is, like, because I was like, she could have, like, she could no longer be with us. She could be retired. And I was like, I don't know, because I can't find anything that references like what she's currently doing past 2021. But some of the stuff, it's like, in 2021, there was an article that was saying that she was an officer at the Chain des Rôtissiers. I cannot speak French, so I think of it's probably like Champ des Rôtissiers, is I'm going to guess what it actually is. And that is a nearly 21,000 strong international gastronomy society that was founded in Paris in the 1950s. And apparently somebody reported she's an officer in that group. That was cool. Also, other articles were saying in 2021, like by that point, so 80 hectolitres, which is 2,100 gallons and roughly 16,800 imperial pints. Again, I'll let Google do the math on that. That is what mash, like currently in 2021, that's how much mash was being brewed once a week. And it was 100,000 gallons / 450,000 litres, which is roughly 3,600,000 imperial pints were being brewed a year from that weekly. And that was an increase from 1977, in which 1,875 litres or 33,000 pints were being brewed. So
that's
on a yearly basis, that is a significant increase. And from what I understood, like, she does all of it. Like, that's like, there's not other people working in there with her. Like, she's control of literally everything. What a badass. I mean, I then started getting confused because they were like, oh, this is it was a Franciscan abbey, not a Benedictine. And I was like, well, tell me more about this. So for anyone else that's curious about what that is, I asked ChatGPT to give me a very user-friendly what the difference was. So Franciscan is founded by St. Francis of Assisi in the 13th century. They focus on poverty, simplicity, and serving the poor. There's an emphasis on living among the people, preaching and caring for nature. It's more outward facing and mission driven. It does say that it's stronger in Southern Europe, so Italy, Spain, and parts of the quote unquote New World, which is Latin America. It says Franciscans being mendicant, and then it says in brackets begging, because I was like, thank you for that. I was like, what? So they're begging monks focused on poverty, and they didn't typically own large estates or breweries. They were more about community service, education, and missionary work, so beer just wasn't a central output to them. But in terms of the beer, it says they really brewed for themselves. Their order discouraged ownership of property and wealth. Any connection to brewing would be usually indirect, so blessing the beer or working alongside lay brewers. When they did engage in that work, it was often in support of community needs rather than for the sale or monastic consumption. And there was an emphasis on humility and service. So brewing wouldn't typically align with the vows of poverty unless it served the poor. And I think that's kind of like, they don't sell it on a large market. It's similar to other breweries we've talked about. From what I gathered from looking at this website, it was very local. Like, if you want to try it, you have to go to this random, like, niche,
monastery.
Remote,
monastery, nunnery.
Yeah. And then in terms of the Benedictine side, just because I think that's probably what we are more familiar with. I can say, like, at least for me, that's definitely what I'm more familiar with. So that was founded by Saint Benedict in the 6th century, and their focus was on stability, community life, prayerful work. And monks lived in the monasteries, which was a structured routine of prayer, reading, and manual labor, which is, I think, where we kind of like see some of those beers being brewed as like part of that manual labor.
Yeah.
It's more inward focused, contemplative, and monastic. The strongholds were in Central and Western Europe, especially Germany, Austria, France, and Belgium, which, again, I don't think that's really a surprise to us. And the Benedictines were among the earliest monastic brewers, particularly in medieval Bavaria, which is, I think, where this monastery is based, is in Bavaria. So that's why it was like, it was a Benedictine monastery and then changed to a Franciscan, which I was like, I don't understand. I was like, I'm not cultured enough in this. What are the differences? So then in terms of beer, it was saying that beer plays a part of daily sustenance. So especially during fasts, so as beer was liquid bread, brewing was part of self-sufficiency with large abbey breweries. The stars are often associated with classic German lagers, Bocks, Dunkels, and in Belgium, Trappist-style ales. It says, though technically, Trappists are Cistercians, a Benedictine offshoot. And their beers tend to be hearty, malty, and strong. And what I thought was interesting, it says, they follow an ora et labora, pray and work, which includes craftsmanship. Pray and work, which includes craftsmanship, and brewing as part of that work ethic. So, yeah, I thought overall I've got some really interesting articles that I feel like I can't really do justice in trying to summarize it. And as you said, like, there is a chance she probably has been mentioned in some of these books, so she's not completely unknown. But I just thought it was really cool to see some of the stuff that they showed bottles. So they're like swing top bottles.
Yeah.
And so those ones, for people that are familiar with more of like the abbey brewed beers, like, you tend to get those, and there's like labels that kind of go up the neck of it, and the label on it is her holding a beer.
That's amazing.
It's really like, I was like, I love this. I really want, it's like, it's made me want, like, I don't know how I would even get there, because it feels so, it was something like the transport, like the latest transport you can get out is like 9 o'clock, so you can't even go there that late. Like, it was, I was like, this would be so wild to go there, so inefficient of like how I normally travel. But I was like, it just seems cool. And I was like, I want a bottle really with her face on the neck. Like, that's really, really cool. So share all those facts. What do you think about this one?
I love Sister Doris.
Feel good?
I'm pretty sure I've read about Sister Doris and loved her when I read about it before. So I think she's in A Woman's Places in the Brewhouse. I'll look it up, and when I'm doing the show notes,
add the chapter.
I'll add it in. So definitely, with this episode, go and check the show notes for all of these articles that Tori's found, so you can go and have a look at them yourself, and anything else we add into it. Tori, if anybody wants to, give you more examples of women that we can look up and look into and see if we can actually find information about them, where can they get hold of you to do that?
Yeah, please do, because I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel on it. I've got a list, and they're really, really sad list, because there's just not that many. So yeah, if you can give me more people to deep dive into, I would love to spend even more time Googling. So please send them to me at adventures_in_hoptimism on Instagram, or you can email me at adventuresinhoptimism@gmail.com. Or you can go on my blog, adventuresinhoptimism.com, which I actually have 2 blog posts up now.
Hey!
I did a top beers one for an alchemist beer. So it was really long, but I'm playing along with the style. It's really hard because I tried to make it user-friendly, accessible for people that maybe don't know on the nerdier side. So it ends up really long in that regard. But then I was like, if I remove it, then it leaves people out. So I did do a click here to get the TLDR. So I did a nice guy thing.
There you go.
So yeah, so go check that out. Maybe I'll write up my anger in a constructive blog post about how male-only colouring books. I was going to rant about this at the whole beginning. I didn't even talk about male-only colouring books.
So we were mad about other things.
Yeah, that makes me angry. That makes me real angry. So if you see me on my Instagram, you'll know that. So yeah, maybe I'll put that in a constructive way on my blog. And if you want to send it to both of us, or you want us to go, I don't know, talk to one of these people, if you want us to go find Sister Doris. And make this really inefficient traveling trek, please let us know. You can find us at A Woman's Brew on Instagram and Facebook, or you can find us on awomansbrewpod.beer, or you can email us at awomansbrewpodcast@gmail.com. Joe, if people want to talk to you about your current anger today, the only thing I'm fixated on the anger. Guys. I'm fixated on the anger. Where can people talk to you about something that's not anger?
Yeah, come and talk to me about other. Let's talk about positive, joyful things.
See how my sarcasm, my cynical side, I'm like, the anger, let it manifest.
You can come talk to me. I'm on Instagram as Love Beer Learning. I'm on Facebook as well. But if you really want to get hold of me, come find me on Instagram. Or you can come to my website, which is lovebeerlearning.co.uk, and you can email me, lovebeerlearning@gmail.com. Should we go finish this lovely Blackadder stout?
Definitely. Cheers.
Cheers.